pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, tonight's agenda is a little different than the usual agendas in that we are going to devote almost the entire open session to talking about things that would usually be done at a board retreat. And that's how the board operates and board norms and communications and other things. But we do have a couple other things we have to take care of very quickly. The first would be the approval of tonight's agenda, so I need a motion to approve that agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on tonight's agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. That passes. The next item is Rockwood Patron Comments, and I believe we have no patron comments for tonight. Actually, I did miss one because it's on a separate page. There are no comments. I need a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes from August 18th. A motion and a second. Are there any comments on those minutes? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. All right,
Abstaining.
with one dissension. Very good. Thank you. Next issue then is the superintendent and board comments, so I will turn that over to our superintendent, Dr. Knows.
And probably important to just make this point. I want to make sure that you all realize we have very few people here tonight, but and some may think, well, why do you still make superintendent comments? We do because, first of all, we do have a pretty good number of people that view our board meetings electronically, and additionally, our communications department always publishes the things that I say. So it's still a way to communicate these important announcements that get out. So just wanted to make that. I thought it was a good night to say that with not many people sitting here. But we have some very important people sitting here, so hopefully they'll enjoy the announcements. Let's start with this. The Rockwood School District continues to set high academic bar in St. Louis region in the state of Missouri. We are excited to announce the class of 2016 had an average ACT score of 23.8, and if you compare that to the Missouri average of 20.2 and the national average of 20.08, it makes us definitely appear as though we're doing a pretty good job in the way of our students anyway are doing a pretty good job of performing on the ACT test. Additionally, some 47% of Rockwood students met all 4 college readiness benchmarks, which is 2 times higher than the state average of 22%. So congratulations to all of our students who are doing well on the ACT. Only 5 national journalism educators were selected as Medal of Merit recipients by the Journalism Education Association, which is the JEE, in 2016, including Lafayette's Nancy Smith. Nancy will be honored on November the 12th at the JEA Fall National High School Journalism Convention in Indianapolis. So congratulations to Nancy. That's pretty neat. Now on September 6th, which is Tuesday, our new middle school activity buses, our old new. We used to have activity buses, and we've reintroduced activity buses to our middle schools in conjunction with going to our in-house transportation system. We added a few buses to be able to do that. So each of our schools has a bus. The students who live in their school attendance boundaries will have multiple opportunities to sign up ahead of time for the activity bus in the morning and at lunch. The activity bus doesn't run every day in our schools. I think they're going 3 times a week, and there are a limited number of students that can sign up. So it's kind of small steps, and we have room for potential expansion. And I will say that I had a very nice phone call from a parent the other day who wanted to know if we were ever going to go back to high school activity buses, and she expressed she understands why middle school is important, because obviously no middle school students drive, but she talked about her situation and the needs of her children. They cannot drive, and the needs of her family. They cannot be there for the kids and their kids that would want to be involved otherwise. So I assured her that that's obviously it's not something we can just snap and make happen. We have to plan and think about, so we'll be looking at that. Definitely seeing how it goes with the middle school, and maybe it's possible that we could with the drivers to do that, dovetail a later route possibly for them to run to the high school. We have 4 high schools, we have 6 middle schools, so.
So can I ask you a question, since we're talking about this, because I wanted to ask you about this. So is there going to be 1 bus per middle school?
Yes, 1 bus per middle school.
And 50 kids?
Yes.
Is what the, okay.
Yeah. And the principals feel really good about that. They think that, you know, there's a number of kids that stay after already that have transportation. They think it'll just increase
Good, yeah.
them. So we're excited about it. We'll let you know how it goes. Just a few more things. Rockwood South Middle School PE teacher Katie Severinson. You hear us talk about Katie a lot. She's a real go-getter. She was just named the 2016 Missouri Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance Middle School Teacher of the Year. She's now eligible to win the Central District Teacher of the Year, and she'll be honored at a convention awards banquet on November the 11th at Lake of the Ozarks. So congratulations once again to Katie Severinson. We've said congratulations to her several times for various different accomplishments. And finally, 100 senior high school students came to the University of Missouri St. Louis STARS program this summer as aspiring scientists, and they left as award-winning researchers. Of the 33 STARS program participants, that won the special recognition, it included 3 students from Rockwood, Hamza, Iqbal, Lafayette, Lauren, Elizabeth Jenkins, Marquette, and Pernica Munyandi Marquette. They were awarded the Partnership of Research Institutions Award for Excellence in Research after presenting their research papers to their peers, parents, and project mentors. So congratulations to those outstanding students. That's all I have for today.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other board members with comments?
I do have one.
Please.
And I know nobody, we have a small group here again. But I do want to say, I just want to recognize like some of our administrators that are so hands-on. I recently, had a situation with my son. It could have been dismissed as boys will be boys, but they, our schools, they really are so hands-on and so caring and so, just gentle with how they handle these kids and making sure that everybody's, happy there and feel safe and loved within the schools when they don't have to do that away from their parents. And they should be recognized for that.
Thanks for saying that.
Who was it? Did you have somebody to recognize? Did I
Yeah,
miss it?
everybody at Baldwin, like literally.
Okay, I thought, okay.
Elementary, they didn't have to. They could have just dismissed the situation and they didn't. It's greatly appreciated.
It means a lot for them to hear that from you, so thanks very much.
Any other board members?
I thought the President Forum, is that the right?
President's
President's
Forum?
Forum.
President's Forum,
group.
yes, went very well. It's my first one to attend, thanks to Laura Lee invited. Pretty sure I got an invitation to it. And I thought it was a great job. I thought, Eric, your words were very pertinent, and
Thank you.
the people, the parents in the room were very enthusiastic, and we're very lucky as a district to have such great leadership
Aren't we though?
with the parent
Yeah.
organization.
And those are open to everybody. I mean, I'm just the board liaison, and Jamie's always there, and I said something to Lynn for being new, but every month they're at a different school, and they're great.
I know we don't want to get feedback, but I think some people have trouble hearing us. Testing. Okay. All right, any other board member comments right now? All right, let's move on to the closed agenda items. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Consent, I'm like,
That's why you're going, what are you talking about? I should
are we
actually
going?
read that when I say it. Motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
So, second?
We have a motion and a second. We have any discussion on those items?
Would you bring up, there you are, the donations?
She anticipated you.
We mentioned the donations each meeting. I thought it was just for the audience out here, but now that Eric mentioned it is for the audience at home. There are 4 sets of donations this time. First, Eureka High School, $1,000 for girls volleyball. just a monetary, I shouldn't say just, a monetary donation from Miss Anonymous, or Mrs. or
Just
Mr.
anonymous.
Donation to Marquette High School for $1,600 from Paul and Lisa Sidney. Donation for 3 instruments for student use in orchestra classes. I love this one. 3/4 size J Balaton violin. 4/4 size Hazelton cello, or cello, whichever you say. 500 3/4 size KC string bass.
Leisure.
And those are expensive. I thought all of them would have been more expensive, but that's fine. I like that price.
Okay, good.
Donation to Rockwood South Middle, $2,750 for PSO, parent organization. Technology, purchase iPads for each PE teacher, which supports the use of the PE heart rate monitors that students use during class. And I think Eddie Matheson mentioned this to me last night, or 2 nights ago about this. Includes 7 Apple iPad Air, 2 Wi-Fi's, 16 gigabytes. Gold part number, I can't read that. Cases and straps. And then the last one is from Stanton PTO, $12,468.49. Meets teachers' needs. Standard white melamine cabinetry, all white with flat panel melamine doors, and 6 printer carts, includes installation. Each month we see stuff like this all the time. For the audience out there and the audience on television or wherever they hear this thing from, those are really great donations. Every board meeting will have like 3 or 4 of these. And we as board members, or at least I'm speaking for the board this time, we really appreciate this. This helps the district and gets you buy-in to the district. I shouldn't say get you buy-in, but that shows how much our parents and our PTO organizations buy into the Rockwood School District. I'm not sure you'll find this in any other district.
Just a little bit of a side note about the Rockwood South Middle School, the iPads for the monitors. That kind of relates back to Katie Severinson we talked about earlier. She went out to start a program and was really excited about it and kind of got the cart before the horse a little bit, but and tried to get a grant for it. I don't think the grant came through, but it was such a neat program that the kids were doing. You go down there and you watch the kids all doing PE with heart monitors on, and their heart rates are up on the screen. They can watch them, and the coaches look for an optimal heart rate. But anyway, our technology, we're not Apple technology, so it's hard for us to have the support for that, and it's not usually in our purchase plan for those things. But that's pretty cool. Well, then the parent group comes in and picks up where Grant didn't, so the teachers can all continue to utilize that. It's a very neat thing.
Yeah, so we're one of the field hockey teams in a private school in St. Louis. They did that, and they strapped something on the back of every one of the athletes, and the coach does keep on the heart rate monitor to give them maximum workouts and stuff like that. It's really amazing.
Neat stuff. Really?
I was going to see if we can pull up 706 and just take a look at that. So it's a good review of the projects going on right now, but also just a good look financially at how some of these projects have gone. We can see that.
Kind of the nice word.
Right.
Any particular one?
No, I was just going through it yesterday and was just, it was just good to see it, and I thought it'd be good to look at together because I think it's always helpful to go back and look at those contract amounts and see where we've fallen, specifically how those change orders have worked. The allowance amounts have all stayed within or under. As far as I don't think there were any that were any different than that. And so it's just really impressive to go through that piece by piece and see how that process works. Because when we approve things before they're in process like this, it's interesting to look at it from, you can see more of a viewpoint of the actual contractor and what they're seeing. You know, we've all done, like Laura Lee said, some kind of work on our house before, and there's always things that come up. So it's just a good time to take a look at that if you can see it. And look at how it's all been done so well by our facilities team. So I didn't have anything specific, but just wanted to.
Great.
Appreciate that.
Within the allowances, yeah.
Just don't tell me nobody else is here.
Any other board comments? I'm sorry, were there comments on the motion to approve the, I have to start reading the consent agenda items tonight. I'm sorry, I'm wandering. All right, then, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda items, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. That passes, thank you. All right, under the regular agenda item tonight, the only real agenda item we have is to talk about board practices and procedures. In years past, we've done this as a separate meeting. It's still open to the public and always has been. But we've tried to schedule a separate meeting. This year, we felt that we tried several times to get that and weren't able to, but we also felt that the board's pretty stable. So we have a list of topics that I drafted together. We don't have to stick to that list. We can discuss any one of these items in as much length or as briefly as we want to. If we all kind of think that we're in the right place, let's just move on to the next one if there's something more that want to be said. I don't think we're going to take any votes as far as adopting anything. It's just that the whole board kind of understands what we all agreed to in terms of guidance. So just to dive right in, the first item on there is board meetings, dates, times, frequencies, locations. We have for quite some time done it every other Thursday night. We've done it here at Crestview. Years ago, the district made modifications to this room in terms of projectors and speakers and things like that. And it was deemed to be centrally located. I guess the people that deemed that didn't live in Fenton. But it was a location to come to where the meetings are usually held. Last year, we moved it around to each one of the 4 high schools, and I think that there was some success in that. Especially because those were the same nights as the award ceremonies, and so you got pretty big crowds and you had pretty big theaters to handle it. So any comments, suggestions? The times right now, we usually start at 6. Sometimes we have a workshop that starts a little earlier if we think we're going to have a heavy night, but
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I thought the awards worked really well because more families could come and attend and it wasn't crowded, and I think hopefully that's something that we can keep.
Well, it's already planned for this
It's already
year to
planned.
have it at 4 places. Isn't it? It's already on the agenda. I mean, it's already on the list.
I think that one of the main things were people like being able to sit and watch everyone could watch the award ceremony, because here, everybody was in the hallway
Right.
coming in, so.
The kids can all be in there. Yeah.
Right, yep.
But I think the last 3 board meetings have sort of been deceiving because they're usually very short. Those 3 are. Most of them aren't that short. Do we need to look, or do we want to look again at possibly once a month on some more times?
That's why I have my calendar out, because I guess in July is really the only one we have once a month, right?
Yeah, and the only thing I'll mention about that, because I've lived through that before too, being such a large district, there's it's not always, this is probably deceiving to the public, it's not always the stuff that we talk about here. Sometimes we have very light agenda, but the amount of business that needs to be approved, from our business office, in smaller districts, you kind of just, people get bills paid late, and you kind of just work your way through that. But ours are so massive that it's really, and keep in mind too, while that's a really good point, the last couple of meetings we've had are short, but think about, remember July was a nice long meeting because it all built up, and that was, there's a lot to do. So I think sometimes you trade it off. Sometimes you think, now let's go away from, the possibility of short meetings. And Dr. Kinder, you're right, they're not all that short. And then you have one in a month and it's really long, and everybody's saying, boy, we should have busted that in 2. So it's sometimes 6, 1 half dozen the other.
And most of our closed sessions, they've all taken the entire time.
Yeah.
So the stuff that we talk about in closed.
Right. Good point.
We actually have like a fuller agenda.
Okay, is it ever possible to have these dates set, but there isn't a whole lot on it, just say, no, we'll postpone it? Can we do that or not?
with enough notice, and I think it's legally 3 days, Sarah?
I think it is 3 days.
So usually you'd like to give the public more notice than that, just so if somebody decides they're planning to come, and even though you've met the legal requirement, meet the spirit of it too, give people ample notice. But yeah, we can. Well, for now, what do you say we leave them as they are? I think we've got a good schedule this year. This is a good facility. There's no objection. We'll leave those as they are. The next item.
I like that.
The next item was agenda setting. 1 week before the board meeting, so it's every other week staggered with board meetings, we get together, Dr. Knost and I, and we talk about setting the agenda. In years past, they had done that over a lunch setting. They had also done it where you have 3 board members there. You're not debating or going through agenda items, but rather just deciding what's going to be on the agenda. We've always invited others to do it. The way that we've done it for the last year or so is that we do it on the Wednesday before the meeting, so it's a week and a day before the meeting, and we would sit down and go through the agenda. Sometimes when the agenda is very light, we'll look that over and we'll just call and talk about it. But most often we get together and we invite other board members to attend that. It's rare that another board member attends it, but always welcome. We just can't have a quorum there. Again, the availability has worked out well for it to be at the end of the day, mostly because Eric's here, was in Eureka, and I live in Eureka, so I can make it over there in time to do that. But if anybody has any ideas of changing the timing, the location, the people, and how we do it, this would be a time to bring them up.
I think it's good that you still offer it to everyone. I mean, I think I've only been to a couple, but, it's nice to know that that is there, and, I would keep it.
Sometimes
the
a
way it
topic
is.
comes up that's kind of near and dear to somebody's heart, and that would be a good occasion for them to come to that planning session.
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job.
All right, we'll leave those as they are. Communications, board communications. We talked about a year ago at the retreat, and the board app came up as a special application, but when somebody sends an email, or tonight we got a letter, I think we all got the same copy of it, to the entire board, what we've done in the past is that the president of the board will draft a response, and they will reply to that person and the entire board, just so that you can see what was done. If somebody sends an individual board member an email or a question, feel free to reply back, and you're not withheld from talking to anybody or replying to anybody that you'd like to. If it's something that's stating a district position, it would be best to at least let the district know about that. Don't say the district thinks this, and without informing the district. We got into a little bit of the app last year, and that's the phone app that we have, and very, very new last year, and we said, well, when somebody says they want to send something to that app and they write an email or a text, what do we do with that? Well, last year there were a total of 3 of those. And what we had talked about...
The whole year there were 3?
The whole year there were 3 of them. What we talked about is that they would run that past the board president. If this was something administrative, like when are we going to have a bus run here, or what time's the meeting that night, that the board president would just take care of it and deal with it. If this was something more of an issue, wanting to know what's going on with the district, the board president would make the call that the entire board would get that. Well, there was one that came up with a timing that was a little weird and a little gray as to whether it was one or the other. And at that point, we got together and we said, look, there's only 3 a year, send them to the whole board. There's no reason to withhold any of them. And that's the way we've been. And this year I haven't seen even one.
The one additional change in that too that made sense is that they were being vetted by my office. Gretchen, in her role, they would come to her first and then she would forward them. We took that out of there, so it's now just, because we thought there's less gray of who's vetting, who's deciding something does go. So they, do they all automatically go to the whole board now, or do they all automatically come to you to forward to them?
I don't know. We haven't gotten one since we made the change.
We haven't.
It's just going to spam, hopefully not.
Yeah, but if I get
Maybe
one,
I'll send one to you just to see how it works.
please.
Yeah.
Maybe Kathy can send one real fast.
Yeah.
See where we go. Honestly, I don't know where they go because there hasn't been another one. Usually, if somebody wants to make a comment to a board member, they'll call them or email them directly, and that's a more steady way to do it. The one time in the Eureka Days parade, a guy, pulled me literally off the street. I got to talk to you, and so that doesn't work out real well. But emails and phone calls work very well. So in the end, so I guess I would propose we leave it that way. They're so rare that there's no reason that if somebody says, I want to comment to the board, that the whole board shouldn't see it. No screening, no deciding who should or shouldn't. Let the whole board see it. And if somebody wants us just specifically to be involved in that response, just so that we're not getting conflicting responses, ask about that before you do it. Okay? Anything else on communications?
But the president is automatically...
We'll automatically respond to every single one of them.
So if we don't, yeah.
Right, if you ignore it, it won't get ignored. But if you want to have specific input on it, by all means.
But email you first.
Yeah, or let's coordinate a response.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Nobody has to.
I just sent a test. We'll see what happens.
See if it comes here.
Yeah.
All right. Open my email.
What'd you say?
Kathy was better word.
It's a good question.
Food was dinner. Okay, food was good.
Okay, COPE Committee, Community Outreach. We had a 3-board member panel to do that for the last couple of years. And I guess I would look to those who were on that committee to tell us.
We haven't met once. Are we gonna meet? She's busy sending an email to
Yeah,
Laura.
we have, do you know the date we have set?
Oh, do
Do we
we?
have first COPE meeting set up, or?
I think we were talking about if we had a board retreat.
Oh, that's
we were going
right.
to get together.
Yeah.
So, do we have something to talk about?
Well, I guess the thing, do we, I only put it on there it's good to periodically review the things we're doing. Is the COPE Committee serving a good function? Do we want to continue doing that? Is it giving us the community outreach that we had wanted from it?
What's it stand for again? COPE? What's it stand? Community
Kathy.
outreach.
Community outreach, public and,
Communications, outreach, and public engagement. That's what I thought it was.
we brought it back a few years ago. And, I mean, it's served its purpose for sure. We did, you, me, and, well, you're on it now, but you, me, and who else was it? Rob was on
I
there.
don't remember. No, it was before Rob.
So maybe we just, if there's something that comes up that we feel like, the retreat was a prime example, where we kind of compiled everything and.
Kind of an offshoot of that it has functioned really well for the last couple of years is, it seems like the main thing we've discussed is the board, we kind of call it professional development, but more so the extra, what kind of presentations does the board want to see?
Right.
And I think it helped ramp up some of that. There's good discussion and we didn't get
That
bogged
was
down.
good.
It was good.
That was
Here,
good.
so.
Well, do we need to have a meeting just to see if there are some, like, student presentations that we can bring in? Because we've always said those were
Good.
really very good.
And we have some staff. Is that on the calendar? When the group is going to come in? I know Lorinda, regarding the
About
London
London?
trip.
Talk
Yeah.
about their trip?
Is that scheduled or?
Well, it sounds like we need a meeting.
Yep.
Sounds like it's serving a purpose and it'd be good to
So,
get
yeah,
that back on there.
I don't think we need to meet as often as we
No.
did in the past, but I think just to brainstorm a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we went like 3 times last year.
yeah.
It was fine, yeah.
Do we know who those are right now?
I think
Me,
it's,
him, her.
I think it's still the same thing, unless somebody else, unless somebody else would like to join.
Somebody's named him.
Well, you can't have 4, but depending on.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to, I mean, you
I'll
and I have probably
volunteer.
been on there the longest, so if there's somebody else that would like to
I'll be
be
glad
on,
to
I'm
let
good
you-
too.
They
Yeah.
meet usually on Mondays,
Usually Mondays at 9. Not every Monday at 9.
which may be hard for
We
some
do meet,
people,
it's a
but-
Monday.
Yeah.
But if the 3 of you have worked well together, then
Well, we have, but there's no reason why. I mean, you seem like you would
Well,
work
yeah,
well
one
with
thing,
him too.
if one of us are going to be absent when we do set it, invite Lynn,
Sure.
that's a good idea.
get a flavor of it. But the first time you appear, you have to bring donuts. That's the policy.
All right, so it sounds like we're going to keep that committee and we're going to keep it meeting. That flows right into the next one very much with the board member professional development. And that is exactly that. It is what kind of training, presentations, information is useful for the board. And I guess a couple of topics that come up every couple of years, and it's a good thing to renew, is a presentation on district financing and how that works and where our money comes from and what monies can be used for what things. And things like tax anticipation notes, what those are. Right now, I think most of the board has a pretty good handle on all those things because we've been through that not too long ago, and Lynn's certainly been around education for a long time. But those presentations, every now and then you kind of re-green the board, or your board suddenly turns out to be, new folks want to keep those topics fresh in the mind. I don't know that, and I guess I would open that up. Are those topics or other topics things that we would like to try and get in front of the board? And generally, we ask someone in the district to make a presentation to the board on those things.
I think these are good topics, but maybe instead of one topic a night, since we are fairly familiar, maybe do 2 or 3 short ones in a night instead of going through the whole rigmarole. Because I know you guys are sharp, but I'm not as sharp as I used to be, so I have to keep getting reminded each year of this stuff, what it is.
Okay. Well, certainly.
Sounds like another purpose of the COPE committee.
Yeah, we can discuss
Sounds like
that.
good. And the same thing with the next item, which is the timing of the calendar. That wasn't meant for us to set the time, but rather a review of how that's done, a review of.
That's a good one.
When do we talk about this and when do we talk about that? And there is a calendar that's year-round that has those things laid out. That can be amended, but it would be nice to see a presentation on what time of year do we talk about the first budget and when do we approve the budget and when do we talk about renewing the VIC program and just on and on and on. I think having that kind of a calendar might be useful for the board just to know when certain things are going to come up and for the public.
So do we want to discuss that on the COPE agenda, that like add that to the list of, I mean, there's other things too, you know, you've had me bring in Roger from Massa the last couple of years to do legislative stuff in April, so if you want to, Roger's retiring in December, but we can still bring in whoever his replacement is or one of the staffers there.
I think what the good thing is we can adapt it to what the 7 of us need, not
Right.
just because we did it last year.
Yeah, that's the idea, yeah.
There's some, you know, we again, COPE can vet these things, but you know, you've got sunshine law in there. I'm a true believer that everyone should be refreshed on the sunshine law, where we would just have either Lisa Stump or Larry. Just I think it's good. It's a responsible thing to do as a board that represents the constituents that voted you in, that you're staying fresh on the sunshine law, and that we remind people, a lot of people don't even know what the sunshine law is. I think it's a responsible thing to do, and we haven't done that.
It's about time.
Yeah, it'd be a good year to do that, so we can vet that through.
Yeah, we may go and come up with a whole list of things
Right.
that are possible, and then do a short survey, and every board member votes on their top 6 or 7, and then go from there.
The MSBA site has lots of good
Yeah.
information, as I'm doing my training.
I'm sorry about that, by the way.
I know it's not that bad. But I mean, they have good stuff on there about sunshine law, but I think it's good documentation to show that the board has gone, at least, I mean, annual review of it, because it ever comes up.
Let's try and get leave some of these topics with the COPE committee and ask them to come up with a list and a kind of an idea of when and how to make those presentations.
So,
And PD.
on the PD.
Continued PD for us.
On that note, I wrote this down, which was mentioned just recently, but does the board, would you like my office to look into and provide more information on the national board
I would, because.
training and
Yeah, I mean,
conference?
my husband has a client who's a school board member in New York, and I talked to him one day at like a conference or whatever, and he said, you know, he learns more from those national board conferences than he does from his state one, because you go to the state and everybody's there from Missouri, okay, and it's good, Missouri's good, but when you go to the national one, you have an opportunity to see what all these other states are doing. And I'm not saying we're gonna bring back all these things and all of a sudden incorporate them all into Rockwood, but it would be neat to hear what other boards are doing in different parts of the country.
Expands your knowledge, and I think that some would, you know, being very honest with you, in the superintendent circles, when you talk about who's doing it, there's kind of an expectation that Rockwood being such a premier district and 3rd largest in the state, definitely a very large district in central United States, that there would maybe be some involvement on the national level from the Board of Education.
I would
So-
like that
yes.
about the rest of you. I think that, yes, I would like that.
And inside the state of Missouri, there are a few other districts that are similar to us, but not very many. And nationally, you would find more similar districts to compare how they're doing it, what they're doing. I think you might find more comparison there.
Since that's kind of professional development, would the board be okay if that's maybe, we kind of advance that topic in the COPE committee, and then when the COPE committee feels that there's something to present to the board, we can bring that forward and present it to the board? Would that be?
Well, as the other board members think of ideas too, don't just keep them to yourself, send them to somebody on COPE or send them to Kathy Orr, so it'll help us also plan some things. And not plan things, but get some ideas.
Okay, the next item, I didn't know where to put this, but I did want to bring it up. We don't do very much that measures the performance of the board. We could talk about something like a review or a public survey. A few years ago, and when we did the one public survey right at the height of when everything was going on, and the board was probably one of the lower, it was still very positive, but not nearly as positive as the rest of the district. And part of that, I think, is that we're elected, publicly elected. And no matter who gets elected, somebody didn't like you. So there's some degree of that, but I don't want to stick my head in the sand and say, so don't even measure it. So I brought it up because I thought it would be comfortable if we did some kind of either a self-evaluation or send it out to everybody and let them make an evaluation, but keep it much more pointed toward what would you like to see the board do, not are they good people or not.
We did that one year through COPE, and I have to say I was disappointed that everybody handed their self-reviews back in, but I think it's a great idea. It was just a one-page questionnaire, I probably still have it at home, that you just rated yourself on how you thought you were doing. But I don't disagree that I think that would probably be a good idea.
I think that was one of the duties of the vice president that year.
You know, what's been nice since I've been here is that we've delegated everything to the vice president. That really worked out well for me.
Yes, it has for me too, yes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Any thoughts on surveys or on a self-review or?
I know there are some tools out there for boards. The other idea is some of the surveys that the district sends out, you could put one question that could be pulled out.
We did that.
You did that?
We did that, and again, that's the one that came back that, it was still very positive, but where most of the things about the district were, and I'm making this up, were in the 80s in positive, that one was in the 60s or 70s. So it wasn't negative, but that was right after a board election and right after, so it was kind of hard to separate from how much of that is just that as an elected person that somebody didn't like is coming out, and how much of that was really, we need to look at our performance.
Could we just add a couple more questions to the survey?
You could, and the other thing that I think we talked a little bit about is that was the survey that it was a lot about the performance of the superintendent and administration, and then a little bit about the board, and then a little bit about assessing readiness for a bond issue. And I think we talked a little bit after that because, first of all, we have good people that work for us that help create these surveys, and they don't cost us anything for the most part because we're doing them through SurveyMonkey, which, we have an account. I don't know, Kathy, you tell me if you think this is a bad statement or not correct. It may make some sense if you want information. It may be a little more accurate if you just isolate a survey germane to the board and the board's business and send it out, because people are then focusing on that, and I think you get a little more accurate. Do you think that's a good statement, or?
I do. I think that's a great way for the board to get feedback. Also, doing just some focus groups as well, I think would provide some opportunity for what questions you really put on that as well. So it can be more from the board deciding to asking the community what kind of questions do they want to answer as well. So that would provide more feedback to give more opportunity for that survey.
Yeah, it might be good too, sorry. Because last year we did add to the website what the board does, because people didn't really know. And so now maybe, we could drive them to that section of the website so they had a better understanding of, while they're taking the quiz, and then they could navigate it and actually use that area more if they do have any questions or concerns, or just don't understand what the duties of the Board of Education, actually are, and what they truly see as what we're responsible for. I know that everybody has to direct their anger somewhere, but so they're understanding what role the board actually plays in helping their situations.
So informational as well.
For the survey,
Right.
yeah.
I agree it'll be more accurate, but when you isolate the board, it will be much less participatory by the audience.
Yeah.
That's probably valid. But on the other hand,
But
can
if we
always-
send it to all of our friends.
You can always try. I mean, nothing gained, nothing
Right.
lost, so to speak. I mean, if it teaches, if it's very poor response rate, then okay, we don't do that again. But maybe even with that, there's value to
Please,
it.
I think it's a great idea.
And isolate district employees from people at large. We might do a different thing.
Well, that sounds like Cope or the vice
Pretty
president.
busy.
Both?
But if we decide to have a focus group or something, I'd be happy to be a part of that. Just
Yeah, I think it's a great
Kathy
idea.
probably has a good handle on how to do that certainly better than I do. So.
The importance of it is how can we improve? So how do we get the information
Right.
so we can put things in
Yeah,
place?
how do we get accurate, meaningful information? Great. Okay. On number 6, the review of any norms for behavior.
I think you skipped one.
Did
Do we
I?
need the superintendent review process when the budget is made, or?
You're right, I did, thank you. According to Missouri, we have to follow, we don't have to follow the exact guideline. They publish a calendar that says in August you'll do this, in September you'll do this, and on and on and on. And it talks about the way that you boil those goals down and you go toward key performance indicators. And the process is very, very formal. You're not required to follow that exact process. You are required to do a review process based upon not the chapters, the goals that are set in there. Here's the standard, and it's online under Missouri school boards. What we've done the last couple of years is at the beginning of the year, somewhere near at the beginning of the year, the school year, we asked Dr. Canos to develop goals. This becomes part of his personal record, and the board reviews those goals and says, yes, those are the things we want you to focus on. We are required by Missouri law to do a performance review of the superintendent in February and make a decision in February whether or not we will extend the contract. The way a superintendent's employment security works is that you always give a superintendent a 3-year contract, not always, usually a 3-year contract, and every year you'll vote whether or not to extend it one more year so that it's always 3 years. If a superintendent gets close to the end of his or her career, then they're looking to retire, usually they'll let the board know that, and they'll let his or her 3-year contract expire. If the board is unhappy with that superintendent, then they can talk to the superintendent through those goals and say, these are the things we need you to fix, and they can decide not to extend it to 3 years, kind of as a probationary period. We've gone through all machinations of that in Rockwood, seen a lot of different things happen. So I guess what I would ask is what we've done and what we're on path to do this year. The goals are based upon the goals listed in the superintendent standards. We've come up with a number of goals and kind of sub-points to that we want him to work on this year. And last year we did the same thing, and we based his evaluation on it and extended his contract. It seemed to work pretty well for us. It kept Eric focused on the things we thought were important, but it didn't have the monthly extra meeting with kind of filing everything down to quite so much detail. So the question I had that on there for is, are we comfortable with the way we're doing it? We are meeting the requirements, but we could certainly make more focus and I guess more of the board's energy spent on those items. I think generally you would do that if you had a superintendent that you think needed more help. And we've decided not to do that. So I guess just put you on the spot. Anybody want to say Eric's not doing a good job? Sorry about that. But I guess any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on that process? Any thoughts on how we're going about it?
I think the key is that we're within the guidelines as either we have to, or the suggested guidelines through all the different organizations, MSBA and superintendent's organization. We're well within those. And Eric does operate under the superintendent standards.
Standards, that's the word I was looking for.
Which are the guiding force.
You must follow those standards, and the goals specifically call out the standard that each one being done.
There's a new set of standards coming out, I'm assuming for the superintendent too. But they're not new, there's like these 7 plus 2 or 3 other ones, if I remember right.
Anybody want to change the process we're doing, or talk about it, or
It works.
we could kick Eric out and talk about it? Or?
Yeah.
Just, again, my own knowledge, when does Eric report out on the goals? When does that happen?
Late January, beginning of February, as we begin that process. What we've done, and this is the only one that we really did ask the vice president, and that's because a few years ago, the board thought that the president of the board and the superintendent worked together more closely and more frequently than the rest of the board. So don't have the president run it, make it more objective, ask the vice president to run that process, which is what we've done for the last several years. The vice president puts together, kind of questions to all the board, kind of comments, anything you want to write, and then ask them to do an evaluation based upon those goals, and then anything you'd like to see done differently. We consolidate that all into one package. We put that whole package back out to the board for approval, and then the vice president does a summary letter, which is his personnel review for that year. After that, we all agree on what it is, then we sit down and talk about the next legal question of, are we going to extend the contract for another year? And then we talk about a raise and what that would be. So it's kind of happened in those orders, and those all happen in February to meet the deadline set by the state.
That evaluation is not a checklist type thing, a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It is more of a essay, a narrative, right?
No?
And one thing, some of that reporting out too is obviously includes, and how I wrote the goals, some of them say this, that various presentations you have here, they're not about my goals, but they're specific to the goals, the reason things are being presented, they're relative to, so there's leading up to that review
They are
as
more or
well.
less
Yeah.
to support progress on your
Yeah.
goals.
And you and I can talk, I can show you what a sample one was last
Yeah.
year, and,
Yeah. Comfortable with her sharing last year's?
What's that?
Are you comfortable with?
Oh, yeah.
sharing that?
Oh,
Let
absolutely.
them see it, let her.
No, it's a very good process,
thank
very,
you for saying that, 'cause I didn't know.
very comfortable process and very helpful.
Okay, well, it seems like one that's worked well. Let's stick with that. Everybody's okay with it? All right. Thank you for catching that. Number 6 is behavior of board members. I'm happy to report that we don't have any rogue board members. Sometimes a board member, I've heard in other districts, can use their position on the board either to launch a political campaign or to advance a different agenda. I don't see any of that among this current board. Thank you very much. Every year at the beginning of the year, we go through the ethics statement, and it's kind of a little bit hokey that we go through and one at a time we read each paragraph, but it serves a good purpose of acknowledging that publicly and reminding all of us once a year of what those things are. So that's why we've done that in the past. That's nothing requiring us to do that, except that I think we have to review it according to policy, but we don't have to do it quite so publicly and reading the whole thing, but I still think that's worthwhile. So I guess before I move on, how does everybody feel about that? Is that ethics statement still a valid thing to do? Still, it happens right after the election of board members. So, this last year we had, last 2 years in a row, we didn't have an election, happily. We had the same number of candidates as openings, and so you didn't have that. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Visiting schools. In the past, we'd say, please visit schools as often as you can. Please don't show up unannounced. The schools are running, they're doing some things, and if you show up, the principal or some administrator is going to have to stop what they're doing and address you. They love to have board members there. They're always very appreciative. If you wait till either they invite you or call them and say, I'd like to schedule a visit, you can avoid interrupting something else. So unless somebody feels different, again, all of this is open. This is not me telling everybody what we have to do, just what we've done in the past is that, and it works pretty well if you don't just show up. Now, if you're visiting a school because you have some reason to visit there, that's fine, but in your capacity as a board member, try not to interrupt the school district.
And I want to thank Janet for calling and making contact with the schools for the first day. I thought that worked extremely well. So what I would like to suggest, at least for myself, and because I want to try to get to all the schools by Christmas, is, I don't know if you have the time to do this, or if Eric, let me know, but if Janet could contact the building secretary.
Why don't you let me help you with that?
Okay.
Yeah, because I go into schools regularly,
She's
and
an old pro.
I email, I do exactly what Matt says, Jamie does on a regular basis. We go in with, he has a schedule, I sometimes go with him, Dave Cobb, plenty of people, but
Ignoring me.
I don't mean to take what you're gonna do
Yeah,
away.
I can do whatever you guys
But
want. I have no problem contacting me.
If you're, if you'd like me to, I can help you with that.
Sure, I just want to, like what you said, Matt, is make
Yep.
sure that the
Yeah.
building principal is aware I'm going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
And the secretary, the front office knows, and so it just works. It
And
worked
I-
last time.
Yep,
I feel compelled to say this on the administrative side. That's very much appreciated, but I also want our board members to know that I don't want to, whatever it may be, if something interest you of going to a building and that hasn't happened, I'm okay with that, and the principal's really okay with that. I appreciate the effort to plan, but I also want you to know that you're welcome in our buildings anytime. And I love it when board members are so comfortable and people know their faces to where if a principal's busy, that you can just tell them, it's okay, keep doing what you're doing. I'm gonna poke my head in a few classes, and it doesn't surprise people. If you do it long enough, you're just part of.
They're very proud to take you around.
Yes, they are very much. So anyway, I appreciate what Matt's saying. I also, again, just as an invitation from the administrative side that.
However you want to do it. If you want me to help you with that, I can. If you'd rather go a route, that's fine too. But I go to a lot of schools, so I'll help you out any way I can.
Well, we'll talk.
All right, sounds good.
The next one's a close cousin of that. Formally, the school board has one employee, and arguably maybe two. And that's the superintendent. We hire the superintendent, we give direction to the superintendent, we oversee the decisions that are made by the district. If you're going to go out and talk to somebody in a school building, and I say arguably too, because we also share the secretary, so Janet's working for us too. But if you go out to schools, and again, this group's been very good about it, but never go out to a principal and say, I expect this. That person doesn't work for the board, that person works for the superintendent. If you have anything at all that you want to make a correction or you think something ought to be done differently, or you want the school to move smartly on a request or something, and again, I know I'm preaching to the choir, you have to say this because we're going to talk about all these things, but the board member should not be directing district personnel to do something or change something. So if you have an issue like that, please always go to the superintendent. Let the superintendent know about that. And even if you're just going to visit a school, let the superintendent's office know that. So again, there's no surprises. He's our one employee. He's the one running the district. Don't handcuff him by kind of going around and doing that. And I think, again, you keep saying these things like we have a problem. We don't, but in the past there has been. So.
And it's probably important to know, and for the public or whoever watches this to know, like, some of us are parents of kids too, and so that's very, very difficult to not go to the like in my situation, I didn't go to you because I was like, I don't want to be treated special or differently or be seen as an abusive power or something like that because I'm a board member, but I'm a parent, and so just like I went through the chain, what I was supposed to be doing, and so that's,
That was handled right, and the idea is you really got to decide which hat you're wearing.
Yeah,
and
it's just like,
if it's a parent issue, be a parent. Exactly right. Okay. And then one I almost veered into a minute ago is the board elections. It seems likely we're going to have an election this year, or it may not. If we only have 4 candidates for 4 openings, then there won't be an election. But if there are more candidates than there are openings, and it's exceedingly rare that you'll have 4. This year we'll have 1 election for a 2-year slot and 3 elections for 3-year slots. If we have more than 4 candidates sign up, then you'll go through the election process. In the past, there's been some, when the elections got a little bit contentious, you can't have 4 board members holding a board meeting at a campaign event. That didn't happen, though somebody accused it. But you can have 4 board members at a location if you're not doing district business. As we get closer to that, I guess I would ask Kathy or somebody to come back and help us with what the ethics violations of that are. In general, every board member is also a citizen of the district. You may support and go to anything you want. You are not restricted to doing that.
oh my God, I'm sorry.
Please be careful of wearing the district on your sleeve. They always talked about people wearing their spouse's rank. When you're out at a campaign thing or you're supporting someone for a board election, you are not representing the district. You are representing yourself. And please be very careful to make that distinction. Again, every year we kind of go through these to remind everybody of it, and it's an important thing to do, and we haven't had an election in 3 years. But if those do come up again this year, be mindful, again, as I said, which hat are you wearing? Be careful not to go there and say, I'm on the board and I think this. And at that moment, you're a parent or a citizen of the district, and then speak as such. I feel like I'm beating on everybody, but it's important to go through these things.
I think it's a good idea, like you said, when the election gets closer, we know we're going to have an election. If you came back and talked to us about it, that would be
the do's and
very
don'ts.
good.
Just keep everybody on the straight and narrow.
Yep.
Finally, something we talked about just today. The CSIP process is something that we go through as a part of the state, and it's required of us. And there are different goals that are listed in there, and I understand that goal number 5 has to do with governance. And let's talk for just a minute about what that means. And I would admit that this is something I certainly know of it, but I'm not as well versed as perhaps I could be, so I was going to ask Dr. Canosta, or Lynn, if you want to chime in, you feel free.
When I saw that on there, I thought that I would provide this so you know. Our CSIP basically utilizes the 5 prescribed goals from the state. You can always add beyond it, but they're actually done pretty well with the overarching goals. You know, there's action steps and things underneath those goals that allow you to make them specific too. And that's what our CSIP does. And you just recently saw our CSIP recap for the year, and it was very, very good. I mean, it's a shame we don't have more community in the seat, because it was basically the story of what we were doing. Everything we talk about, a lot of what you hear in my goals, those things are embedded in it's not something that's on the shelf. Districts handle goal number 5, so this is one of the prescribed, so it has to be on there, but districts handle this differently. Rockwood has always, and I came into this understanding it, and it's written this way. It really just speaks to the work that you do as the board. That's kind of how in Rockwood the governance piece has been handled. If you read that, Objective 1 talks about the governance practices. You just touched on some of those things, the things that you do. It's got those things written in there, the annual budget, PD, the superintendent evaluation, so on and so forth. Object 2 is the ethical practices. You talked about that, and you talked about that practice of reading the ethics. Objective 3, communication plan, really that's directed and handled through Kathy in her work, communicating for the board and making sure that the message that the board or that the district is consistent with what the board and the board business is directing. So there are some districts that may make a goal within that governance piece or have the board doing something. We talked earlier about the measurable piece. If there's something specific that the board wants the board to be doing and monitoring and working on that's not covered in that overarching governance piece, then you definitely can elect to do that. But this was the practice that I found in Rockwood and we've maintained since I've been here. It's really been just the role of the board, practicing ethically and accordingly to MSBA training and so on and so forth. That's the background, but we can surely discuss other.
So does the board have, when the CSIP, the annual review process of the CSIP and the tweaking strategic planning process, does the board have opportunity to put in some action steps or to review this? Or, is that, Keith's nodding his head, so.
Every year,
Yeah,
we have that option.
But
I'm trying to think whether we actually sat down on development of these. I think when they went through, I think when they went through the major thing,
5 years.
Katie was working on it.
Right.
It wasn't 5 years ago, was it?
No, it was Katie was the last one to do it.
It was a couple years ago.
This is actually our 3rd year of implementation in the current CSIP. It was developed the year before I came, and that's when whatever, why it was deemed for Katie's role, I think maybe Dr. Adams just asked her to do it. It's kind of under the auspices a little bit of Karen Hargenine, or a lot of Karen Hargenine right now, and Lisa Counts has a lot to do with that too. So, but it'll be another couple of years, but that would definitely be the case. There would be definitely board involvement in creating that. In the tweaking, I still think that's there though, Lynn. When the presentation is given, and maybe we should make more sure of when we do present to make sure that we leave some comfortable, the way it's presented in a way that the board can give input to maybe change or alter or suggest an additional action step on something. But we're absolutely open to that.
Yeah, I think I remember the key to this total thing was don't make it picky items or very narrow items, make it in broad, because it involves the total board, not on one particular situation of everything we do. And I think Katie gives a lot of suggestions, and we maybe modified number 3 a little bit, I think, because that was one that we were struggling with 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's where the meat, I mean, that's where there's some things in
I
there.
think that one can be redone some, I think.
And if you look at objective number 3, I mean, we call it COPE, number 4 says good communications and public engagement. It was not accidental that there's a correlation between those things, so.
It's probably how it was formed.
Right,
That was before my time. I
right.
assume that that's why it's there.
But just as other people come and report out on goal 1, 2, 3, and 4, is there a reporting process for 5?
There has not been.
Okay.
There has not been.
Doesn't mean we can't.
There's something to think about. That's what I'm calling. Don't want to make it more complicated than it is, but.
Well, it's nice to set what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, while there aren't any big issues. I mean, if there was a big problem with how the board was behaving or whether we're getting into these things, then it's hard to say, aha, let's do that. But right now, if we set a process when there isn't a big, elephant in the room, and then follow that. So I agree.
Just get a structure in place that
Yeah.
proactive.
All right, we have reached the end of the list that I had come up with. I would throw that open to any other board member if they have something they'd like to add to it at this point. It was a good night. Some of it seems a little bit redundant, but again, it's nice to talk about it while there aren't issues so that everybody can get on there, can look back through that and see what we've talked about. So, good time.
I commend the list. I think that even when things are very well, that's a good standing list to revisit every year, whether we do it in a meeting or in a separate meeting with a retreat, or whether we need to expand on something. But it's really a very solid running list.
That list I gleaned from last year's agenda item for the retreat, so I didn't just sit down and make those up. And then we modified it a little bit, but it did come from what we've done in the past.
That's what the vice president put together last year.
Yeah, the vice president didn't do it very well, so.
Well, I do want to mention that talking about board, and a lot of this is about board stuff. We have people on here that have been on here 5.5 years, 4.5, coming on 3, 2 and 1, and less than 1. The board has changed over the years in a really positive way, folks. Unless you followed us for the last 6 years, you don't understand how positive it has become compared to what it was or could have been. So just keep that in mind, which is essence is saying, I think we're really doing a heck of a job.
I commend the board because you all still bring your diverse thoughts. It definitely doesn't mean you agree on everything. There's a lot of conversation before you get to votes. Sometimes those votes look unified, and I think that's great when you have creative discourse, if you will, but you have those conversations, and I speak from experience. You function as a very healthy board, and I think representing collectively the district and the variety of thoughts and paradigms that are out there, it functions very well.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? All right, let's move to the proposed agenda for the September 15th Board of Education, and our projector just went out, so everybody can kind of crane
Did I
around.
kick it?
This one,
This one just went off, I don't know
I
why.
think I must have kicked it or something.
oh, here, is that on?
Press the button. There you go.
Yeah, push that down.
Other one.
It'll be up in 5 minutes.
Herman made me do that.
We looked at it, didn't we? I mean, didn't everybody look at it?
Well, everybody take a look. At this point, we usually go through it. If there's anything you want to add, the planning session will probably be next Wednesday. We'll get together. If any board member would like to attend that or would like to see it ahead of time.
5:30, we're coming?
What's that?
5:30 we need to be here instead of 6?
Was that 5:30? Is it
It's
a?
5:30.
Yes.
Huh? Why? No.
No.
September 15th.
That can always be changed, can it?
Well, wait a minute. Oh, this is 15th. But I don't know why it says 5:30. I think that's probably something we did last year.
Rolled
Just
over, yeah.
rolled over. No, we
Let's make it 6. There's no saying nothing.
Thanks for noticing that.
Yeah.
Thanks for noticing that.
And it's here. That's not one that moves, right?
No.
Okay.
It Yeah, when is the first one, when is the first awards
It goes to a high school.
ceremony?
November, I think, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Have to wait
right.
till the fall season's over.
November
All right, well, if
10th.
anything comes up that you want to change that, the review session for the agenda is next Wednesday. If you'd like to attend that, just please let Janet know. And everybody's welcome, we just can't have more than 3.
I think there was something on here that I had a question about. If we can we scroll down on that? Deb? Can we scroll down on that? I feel like I read something. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's too
Hold on.
fast. Maybe not.
Can you go back?
Well, all the agenda items, those are going to be reports.
That-
The other one's down.
That's going to be a fairly lengthy meeting next time.
change
Yeah,
orders.
We're getting back into the meat of it here.
The
You're gonna have
change
special
orders
school
and
district
project
report.
allowance status report, is there another one coming? Or is that left on from this one?
No, that's the potential for it.
Okay.
Just at this time,
You're
just
right.
kind of closing things
That's what I
out.
wondered.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's out there, but-
That was my only question, as I.
And look at that agenda, there's a fair number of things on there. We've been pretty light the last 2 or 3 times, but that's getting back to a normal presentation of special school district, early childhood, those kinds of things. So those take a little more time to go through, so. And as always, I would encourage everybody to try and read through them before you get here, so you have any questions you might have ready to be answered.
Do we usually add some to those each time or take away depending on, or that's it, it's going to be those?
That's what comes up, we can change it all the way up till that Wednesday, but
Yeah, change it, and obviously it goes through my cabinet, and the leadership team meetings where, cause things to change based upon need
Okay.
of whatever's.
But that's the normal schedule for that, for next time.
all right, future agenda presentations and events to attend. This time of year, there's something going on at every school every week, so take a look at the calendar if there's anything that you would like to be part of. But if you call up ahead of time and say, I'd like to attend this assembly, they really do appreciate that. So if you have a chance to do it, just don't show up unannounced.
I wanted to mention, I'm sorry.
Tax levy meetings on the 29th.
29th, yeah.
Mr. Dole will call me personally.
So, who
Text it here.
do,
We've
And
got
I will
4.
not be here.
so
Ooh,
you're not there, Herman's not,
I'll be down at the lake.
okay, you're here.
yes, ma'am.
So
Well,
1,
maybe
2,
not home.
3,
We've got 4.
It's,
4, we've got 5.
right, it's more than a formality, but it's a fairly easy, quick thing to do, but we have to do it before October 1st, and generally we don't have the data before mid-September, not October. So we really have to do it that last week in September, so if it turns out that you're not going to be there, and I'm going to Herman, we know you're not, but if it turns out you're not going to be there, we really need to know that, so we can make sure we get a
We
quorum.
have 5 now or 4 going?
5 now, right?
We have 5.
Yes, sir.
Is there going to be any proposed change in the levy?
That's all driven, we do tax recoupment,
Yeah.
which drives where that levy sits.
Where we can put it by law?
Yeah, it's all driven by law.
By law.
But Tim does
We didn't go for any increase or anything.
No.
Yeah, it's just a
No, we're not, there's no ballot initiative
Yeah, so
asking
it's
for any
just a
raise.
matter of-
Yeah.
Just an adjustment.
Where does it calculate out to? Make sure there's a public hearing for that and then approve it.
Yeah.
We don't generally know
based
that
on the
until about the
assessed
28th.
valuation.
Right, we don't know until we have all the data, which is why we have to push it as late as we can. So there are times, it's actually happened since I've been here, where you end up, even you push it as late as you can, and the data isn't the final data, and so it comes back and it's different, you have to report out on that after the fact.
Right.
But we have to record it by October 1.
And last year, we cleverly did it on a night when we had a voracious rainstorm, so you couldn't hear anything in this room. We'll try and do it.
I wanted to mention really quick, I know that
Is your son's going to be there?
some
If
have
they're not, I'll come
already
back.
stated that, I don't think anybody can make it, but I just think it's kind of a neat thing. The Eureka Days parade this year, typically, and Matt's done that with me, Dominique has done that with me, and they have put us in some kind of classic cars before. We end up walking alongside anyway because you can't throw candy from cars. It's an ordinance in Eureka. But we're doing something really cool this year that they wanted one of our buses to be in the parade.
Oh, that is fun.
So we're putting everybody in a bus so we don't have to be in those cars
Good.
we can't keep up with anyway. And we think it's going to be a good mix. It's gonna be everybody, all the marshals are going to be on there, all the parade marshals. we're gonna try to fill the bus up, and so there'll be some of us that will walk alongside the bus so we can give out candy. Others will just be cheering out the bus, and I think it's gonna be a really cool thing. So I know some have already said they just can't, but if something changes, or if you just are looking for something that I think is fun, it doesn't take that long. We get up there about 9?
Yeah.
9-ish, I think is when we stage.
Done by 11 or so.
Done by 11, 11:30, and the bus will take us back. We meet in the church parking lot, whatever that church is, Sacred Heart, and the bus will, after the parade, will get us back up there. And you really avoid all the traffic. You get in right off the highway, you're not in the traffic, you go through the parade, bus gets you back up there, and we'll be good. So just wanted to, that's the 10th, not the 10th. Well, it is the 10th. Okay. So, yeah, I think you have a commitment,
Yeah.
and so we know that a number of you can't, but just wanted to keep it out there. I think it's gonna be a cool thing, and if something changes that you can come, let Kathy, well, you can let me know too, but we need to just make sure that we plan for it, but wanted to make sure everybody knows about it. That's it.
Oh, one last thing, there was the homecoming, they wanted, I was gonna go pick up some of the signs tomorrow, but they were hoping people could put, some signs out to where people, that there's, I guess they're in your office, or the annex or something. Stay safe homecoming.
Oh, yes, probably from the
signs.
Drug-Free Coalition. I imagine there's signs from them, and
They have them, they wanted, if you know any people that have businesses in the area, or if you could put it at your house, or, just locations so people are aware that this is going on and they're staying safe and what have you.
Good. All right, any other final comments from everyone tonight? And thank you for coming, we'll adjourn.